What if I told you that the restlessness you feel, that subtle sense of being out of place in your own routine, is not a flaw in your character, but a whisper from something deeper, something that knows you better than your conscious mind ever could? What if the hours you spend staring at a screen, refreshing pages that offer nothing new, or the way you suddenly find yourself reorganizing a drawer instead of doing the one thing you said you would do today? What if all of that is not laziness, not weakness, not some moral failing you need to overcome with discipline and force, but rather a quiet rebellion, a form of inner resistance that carries a message you have not yet learned to read? There's a quality to certain moments in life that we rarely speak about. It happens in the late afternoon when the light changes and you find yourself paused, holding a cup of tea that has gone cold, staring out a window at nothing in particular. It happens when you open your laptop with full intention to work, and then, inexplicably, you close it again, feeling a heaviness in your chest that has no name. It happens when someone asks you how you are and you say fine, but inside there's a stirring, a sense that fine is the least accurate word you could have chosen, yet it is the only one that fits the shape of the conversation. These moments are not random. Nothing that repeats itself in your inner life is random. The patterns we dismiss as distractions, the habits we judge as failures, the ways we turn away from what we claim we want, these are not obstacles to be conquered. They're signals. They are the language of a part of you that has no voice in the ordinary world, a part that can only communicate through disruption, through the sudden loss of motivation, through the inexplicable pull toward anything other than what you planned. You may have noticed this yourself. Perhaps you set a goal, something that seemed important, something that made sense when you wrote it down or told a friend about it. And yet, when the time comes to act, you find yourself doing something else entirely. Not something better, not something more urgent, but something small and irrelevant. You rearrange books on a shelf. You scroll through images of places you will never visit. You start cleaning the kitchen with a focus you have not brought to anything in weeks. And afterward, you feel a strange mix of guilt and relief, as though you have both failed and escaped something at the same time. This is where most advice fails you. It tells you to push harder, to build better systems, to eliminate distractions, to wake up earlier, to hold yourself accountable. It treats procrastination as an enemy, a weakness in your willpower, a gap in your discipline that needs to be filled with force. But what if the opposite is true? What if procrastination is not the problem, but the symptom? What if it is your psyche's way of saying stop? Not because you are incapable, but because the direction you're moving is not aligned with who you actually are, with what you actually need, with a life that is trying to emerge from within you. Carl Jung spent much of his life studying the ways the unconscious speaks to us, not through clear language, not through logical argument, but through symbols, through dreams, through slips of the tongue, through the things we forget and the things we cannot stop thinking about. He understood that the unconscious is not a dumping ground for repressed desires or childhood wounds, though it contains those things. It is also a source of wisdom, a deeper intelligence that sees patterns we cannot see, that knows truths we are not ready to admit, that guides us toward wholeness even when we resist. One of the ideas Jung returned to again and again was the difference between the persona and the self. The persona is the mask we wear, the role we play in the world, the version of ourselves we present to others and often to ourselves. It is not false, exactly, but it is partial. It is the part of us that adapts, that fits in, that learns what is expected and tries to deliver it. The self, on the other hand, is the totality of who we are, the full spectrum of our potential, our longings, our gifts, our shadows, our unique path. The self does not care about fitting in. It cares about truth. It cares about alignment. And when the life we are living is too far removed from the life the self knows we need, the unconscious begins to interfere. This interference does not always look dramatic. It does not always come as a breakdown or a crisis, though sometimes it does. More often, it comes as a quiet withdrawal of energy. You simply cannot bring yourself to do the thing. You sit down to write the email, and your mind goes blank. You open the document and feel a wave of exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. You tell yourself you will start tomorrow, and tomorrow you tell yourself the same thing, and the days accumulate into weeks, and you begin to wonder what is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. Something is wrong with the task, or with the role, or with the life you're trying to force yourself into. Your psyche is refusing to cooperate, not out of spite, but out of protection. It is saying, in the only way it can, that this path does not serve you, that this goal is not yours, that this version of success you are chasing belongs to someone else's story, not your own. In this exploration, I want to share with you several signs, several inner shifts and patterns that reveal when procrastination is not a problem to be solved, but a message to be heard. These are not steps or strategies. They are recognitions. They are invitations to look more closely at what is happening beneath the surface of your resistance. And if you stay with me until the end, you may find that some recent experience, some moment of confusion or frustration, begins to reorganize itself in your mind, begins to reveal a meaning you could not see before. The first sign is a feeling that is hard to name. It is not quite dread, not quite boredom, but something in between. You look at your to-do list, and instead of feeling motivated or even neutral, you feel a kind of flatness, a sense that none of it matters. Not in a depressed way, necessarily, though it can shade into that. More like a loss of color. The tasks are still there, the deadlines are still real, but they have become strangely distant, as though they belong to someone else's life, and you're just watching from the outside. This flatness is often mistaken for burnout, and sometimes it is. But sometimes it is something more specific. It is the feeling that arises when you're living according to a script that no longer fits. Maybe the script was written years ago, when you were younger and less aware of who you were. Maybe it was written by your family, by your culture, by the voices of authority you internalized without questioning. Maybe you wrote it yourself, but you wrote it based on who you thought you should be, not who you actually are. You might have chosen a career because it seemed stable, because it impressed people, because it paid well, because someone you respected suggested it. And for a while, it worked. You were able to show up, to perform, to meet expectations. But slowly, over time, something shifted. The tasks that once felt manageable now feel meaningless. The goals that once motivated you now feel hollow. And when you sit down to work, your mind wanders, your body tenses, and you find yourself doing anything else, anything at all, just to avoid the feeling of being trapped in a role that no longer reflects who you are becoming. This is not laziness. This is your psyche withdrawing its energy from a path that is not aligned. Jung called this the withdrawal of libido, the life force, the animating energy that makes us feel alive and engaged. When we are aligned with our true path, energy flows naturally. We still get tired, we still face challenges, but there's a sense of rightness, a feeling that we are moving in a direction that matters. But when we are misaligned, when we're living someone else's idea of a good life, the energy dries up. We become listless, distracted, unable to focus. And no amount of discipline or willpower can bring that energy back, because the problem is not a lack of effort. The problem is a lack of alignment. You might notice this in small ways. You procrastinate on the work project, but have endless energy for a personal creative pursuit. You avoid the emails that relate to your official role, but respond instantly to messages from friends or communities that feel more authentic. You drag yourself through the day, feeling exhausted, and then stay up late reading or researching something that has nothing to do with your job, but everything to do with a curiosity you have been ignoring. These patterns are clues. They show you where your energy wants to go, where your attention naturally flows when you're not forcing it. And if you pay attention, if you stop judging yourself for procrastinating and start asking what the procrastination is protecting you from, you may begin to see that you're not avoiding work. You are avoiding a life that does not belong to you. The second sign is a recurring sense of obligation without desire. You find yourself saying yes to things you do not want to do, not because you're being coerced, but because you cannot imagine saying no. The request comes, and before you have even thought about it, you have agreed. And then, as the date approaches, you feel a growing dread. You hope something will come up, some excuse that will let you cancel without guilt. You fantasize about being sick, about a sudden emergency, anything that would release you from a commitment. This pattern often shows up in relationships and social roles. You agree to attend events that drain you. You take on responsibilities that do not align with your values or interests. You maintain friendships that feel more like obligations than connections. And when the time comes to follow through, you procrastinate. You delay getting ready. You arrive late. You find reasons to leave early. Or you cancel at the last minute, feeling both relieved and ashamed. What is happening here is a conflict between the persona and the self. The persona wants to be liked, to be seen as reliable, to avoid disappointing others. It has learned that saying no comes with consequences, that setting boundaries can lead to rejection or conflict. So it says yes, over and over, even when the self knows that the yes is a betrayal, a denial of your own needs and limits. Procrastination, in this context, is a form of passive resistance. It is the self trying to protect you from a commitment that the persona made without consulting the rest of you. It is your psyche saying, I will not give you the energy to do this because doing this harms us. And so you drag your feet, you forget, you get distracted, you do anything to avoid following through because some part of you knows that following through means continuing to live in a way that is not true. The guilt you feel afterward is real, but it is also misplaced. You are not guilty of being unreliable. You are guilty of having said yes when you meant no. The procrastination is not the crime. The crime is the lack of boundaries, the habit of prioritizing others' expectations over your own truth. And until you address that deeper issue, until you learn to say no before you commit, the procrastination will continue because it is the only way your psyche knows how to protect you. There is a particular texture to this kind of procrastination. It feels different from the procrastination that comes from fear or perfectionism. It does not come with a sense of I am not good enough or I might fail. It comes with a sense of I do not want to be here. It is quieter, more resigned. You are not avoiding the task because it is hard. You are avoiding it because it represents a life you do not want to live, a role you do not want to play, a version of yourself that feels increasingly foreign. The third sign is a pattern of starting things you do not finish. You have bursts of enthusiasm, moments when you feel inspired and energized, and you dive into a new project, a new hobby, a new plan. But after a few days or weeks, the energy fades. You stop showing up. The project sits unfinished. The materials gather dust. And you feel a familiar disappointment, a sense that you are incapable of following through, that you lack discipline or commitment. But what if the pattern is not about discipline? What if it is about discernment? What if you are starting things that are not actually yours to finish, things that caught your attention because they seemed interesting or impressive, or because someone else was doing them, but that do not connect to your deeper purpose or passion? Jung spoke about the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. It is not a linear path. It involves trial and error, exploration, dead ends. You try on different identities, different roles, different pursuits, and some of them fit and some of them do not. The ones that do not fit fall away, not because you failed, but because they were never meant to be part of your story. When you start something with genuine alignment, the energy sustains itself. There are still challenges, still moments of doubt, but there's also a pull, a sense that you're moving towards something that matters. But when you start something because it seems like a good idea, because it fits an image of who you think you should be, the energy does not last. You procrastinate. You lose interest. You move on. And this is not a failure. It is feedback. The problem is that we live in a culture that values completion over exploration, that treats every unfinished project as evidence of weakness. We are told to finish what we start, to push through, to be consistent. And so we judge ourselves harshly when we do not, when we lose interest, when we move on. But what if moving on is sometimes the wisest choice? What if the ability to let go of what does not serve you is a form of strength, not weakness? Procrastination, in this context, is your psyche's way of helping you let go. It withdraws energy from the thing that is not aligned, making it harder and harder to continue, until eventually you stop. And if you can release the guilt, if you can see the pattern not as failure, but as a natural part discovering what is truly yours, you may find that the next thing you start, the thing that comes from a deeper place, is the thing you do not have to force yourself to finish. The fourth sign is a growing discomfort with the person you are becoming. You look at your life from the outside, and it seems fine. You have achieved things. You have met goals. You have the markers of success that you were taught to value. But inside, there is a dissonance. You do not recognize yourself. The person you see in the mirror, The person who shows up to work, the person who interacts with others, feels like a stranger. And this stranger is not someone you particularly like. This is one of the most painful recognitions, because it suggests that the life you have built, the life you have worked so hard to create, is not actually your life. It is a life that makes sense to others, a life that fits expectations, but it is not a life that feels true. And when you're living a life that is not true, procrastination becomes a form of self-preservation. You cannot bring yourself to do the things that would further entrench you in that life, because some part of you knows that every step forward in that direction is a step away from who you really are. Jung wrote about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or deny because they do not fit the image we want to present. But he also wrote about the golden shadow, the parts of ourselves that are not dark or shameful, but simply unlived. These are the gifts, the passions, the ways of being that we have suppressed because they did not fit the role we were playing. And when those parts remain unlived for too long, they begin to haunt us. They show up as restlessness, as dissatisfaction, as a sense that something is missing even when everything looks fine. Procrastination, in this context, is a symptom of the unlived life pressing against the surface. It is the golden shadow trying to get your attention, trying to slow you down, trying to create space for something new to emerge. You cannot move forward with the old plans because the old plans do not have room for the parts of you that are ready to be born. And so you stall, you delay, you resist, not because you are broken, but because you're on the edge of transformation and your psyche is protecting you from moving too quickly in the wrong direction. This kind of procrastination often comes with a deep fatigue, a tiredness that sleep does not fix. It is the fatigue of living out of alignment, of maintaining a persona that requires constant effort, of suppressing the parts of yourself that want to be expressed. And no amount of productivity hacks or time management strategies will address it, because the problem is not how you are spending your time. The problem is who you are being while you spend it. The fifth sign is a loss of meaning in the goals you once cared about. There was a time when you knew what you wanted. You had ambitions, dreams, a clear sense of direction. But now, when you think about those goals, you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel a kind of emptiness, a sense that even if you achieve them, it would not matter. The promotion, the recognition, the milestone you were working toward, all of it has lost its luster. And yet, you keep going through the motions because you do not know what else to do. This loss of meaning is not the same as depression, though it can overlap. Depression flattens everything, makes it hard to feel anything at all. But this is more specific. It is a loss of meaning in a particular direction, a particular set of goals, while other areas of life may still feel vibrant. You may have lost interest in your career, but feel deeply engaged in your relationships, or in a creative pursuit, or in learning something new. The flatness is not global. It is targeted, and that is the clue. When you lose meaning in a goal, it is often because the goal was never truly yours. It was adopted, borrowed, inherited. It made sense at the time, but you have changed. You have grown. You have learned things about yourself that make the old goal irrelevant. And now, when you try to work toward it, your psyche resists. It procrastinates. It withholds energy. It says, in its quiet way, that this is no longer the path. Jung believed that meaning is not something we create or choose. It is something we discover. It emerges from the depths of the psyche, from the self, from the patterns and symbols and longings that are uniquely ours. And when we are aligned with that deeper meaning, life has a quality of rightness, even when it is difficult. But when we're chasing goals that do not connect to that deeper meaning, life feels hollow. We go through the motions, but there is no animating force, no sense of purpose. Procrastination, in this context, is a refusal to continue investing in what is hollow. It is your psyche saying, I will not help you build a life that does not matter. And if you can hear that message, if you can stop trying to force yourself forward and instead ask what does matter, what does feel meaningful, you may begin to discover a new direction, one that your psyche will support because it is aligned with who you truly are. The sixth sign is an increasing attraction to silence and solitude. You find yourself wanting to be alone more often, not because you are depressed or antisocial, but because you need space to hear yourself think, to feel what you actually feel without the noise of others' expectations and opinions. You cancel plans. You turn down invitations. You spend evenings at home doing nothing in particular, and it feels like relief. This withdrawal is often judged by yourself and others as isolation or avoidance. But it is not always that. Sometimes it is a necessary retreat, a pulling back of energy, so that you can reorient, so that you can listen to the quiet voice inside that has been drowned out by the demands of daily life. Jung called this the process of turning inward, of attending to the inner world with the same seriousness we usually reserve for the outer world. When you're living a life that is not aligned, the outer world becomes exhausting. Every interaction requires you to maintain a persona, to play a role, to be someone you are not. And over time, that effort depletes you. You need more and more time alone just to recover, just to return to yourself. And during that time alone, you may find that you procrastinate on the tasks that belong to the outer life, the emails, the calls, the obligations, because engaging with them means putting the mask back on, means stepping back into the role that feels increasingly false. This is not laziness. This is self-preservation. Your psyche is creating space for you to reconnect with yourself, to remember who you are beneath the roles and expectations. And in that space, something new can emerge. A new understanding, a new direction, a new sense of what matters. But only if you allow the space to exist, only if you stop judging the withdrawal as a problem and start seeing it as a necessary part of the process. The seventh sign is a recurring fantasy of a different life. You find yourself daydreaming about living somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. These fantasies are vivid and persistent. They come to you when you're supposed to be working, when you're driving, when you're lying in bed at night. And they are not vague or abstract. They have details. You can see the place, feel the atmosphere, imagine the daily rhythms of this other life. Most people dismiss these fantasies as escapism, as a way of avoiding the responsibilities of real life. But Jung would say that these images are not random. They are messages from the unconscious, symbolic representations of unlived potential, of aspects of yourself that are trying to emerge. The fantasy is not a literal blueprint. You do not necessarily need to move to that place or take that job. But the fantasy is pointing towards something real, something that is missing in your current life, something that needs to be integrated. When you procrastinate on the tasks of your current life while spending hours lost in fantasies of another life, your psyche is telling you that there is a gap, a misalignment. The life you are living does not have room for the parts of you that the fantasy represents. And until you find a way to bring those parts into your actual life, the procrastination will continue because your energy is being pulled toward the unlived, toward the potential that is calling to you. This does not mean you have to abandon everything and chase the fantasy, but it does mean you need to pay attention. What is the fantasy offering you? Is it freedom, creativity, connection, simplicity, adventure? Whatever it is, that is what your psyche is hungry for. And if you can find a way to bring even a small amount of that quality into your current life, the procrastination may ease because you are no longer living in complete opposition to your own needs. The eighth sign is a sense that you are waiting for permission. You have ideas, desires, things you want to try, but you do not act on them. You tell yourself you will start when the time is right, when you have more money, when you have more time, when you're more prepared. But the time never comes. You keep waiting. And while you wait, you procrastinate on the things you are supposed to be doing because those things feel like distractions from what you actually want to be doing, even though you're not doing that either. This waiting is a form of paralysis. It comes from a deep belief that you do not have the authority to choose your own life, that you need someone else to give you permission, to tell you it is okay, to validate your choices. Maybe this belief was formed in childhood, when you learned that your desires were not important, that you had to wait for adults to decide what you could and could not do. Maybe it was reinforced by a culture that values conformity and punishes deviation. Whatever the source, the result is the same. You are stuck between two lives, unable to fully commit to either, and the procrastination is the symptom of that stuckness. Jung spoke about the process of becoming conscious, of taking responsibility for your own life, for your own choices. He believed that true maturity involves recognizing that no one is coming to save you, that no one is going to give you permission to live the life you want. You have to give yourself that permission. You have to become your own authority. And this is terrifying because it means accepting the full weight of your freedom, the full responsibility for the consequences of your choices. Procrastination, in this context, is a way of avoiding that responsibility. As long as you are waiting, as long as you are stuck, you do not have to face the fear of choosing, the fear of failing, the fear of discovering that the life you want is not as easy or as fulfilling as you imagine. But the cost of waiting is high. It is the cost of living a half-life, of never fully stepping into your own existence, of remaining a child in an adult's body, always looking for someone else to tell you what to do. The ninth sign is a growing awareness of time passing. You look at the calendar and realize that months have gone by, that another year is ending, that you are older now and you have not done the things you said you would do. This awareness brings a mix of panic and grief. Panic because time is running out. Grief because you can feel the weight of the unlived life, the opportunities not taken, the potential not realized. And yet, even with this awareness, you still procrastinate. You still delay. You still find ways to avoid the very things that would move you toward the life you want. This is perhaps the most painful form of procrastination because it is accompanied by full awareness. You know what you're doing. You know what it is costing you. And yet, you cannot seem to stop. The resistance is so strong, so deeply rooted, that even the fear of running out of time is not enough to overcome it. And this is when you must ask yourself the deepest question. What am I so afraid of that I would rather waste my life than face it? The answer is rarely simple. It may be fear of failure, fear of success, fear of being seen, fear of being rejected, fear of discovering that you are not who you thought you were. It may be a fear so old and so buried that you do not even have words for it. But the procrastination is protecting you from that fear. It is keeping you safe, keeping you small, keeping you in a life that is familiar, even if it is not fulfilling. And until you are willing to face the fear, to sit with it, to let it move through you without running away, the procrastination will continue. Jung believed that the confrontation with the unconscious, with the shadow, with the unlived parts of ourselves, is the central task of the second half of life. It is the work of individuation, of becoming whole. And it is not easy. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to let go of the persona, the mask, the safe identity you have built. It requires you to step into the unknown, to trust that there is something on the other side of the fear, something more real, more alive, more true. Procrastination, from this perspective, is not the enemy. It is the threshold. It is the place where you are standing, looking at the door you need to walk through, feeling the fear, feeling the resistance, and trying to decide whether you are ready. And the answer is not always yes. Sometimes you're not ready. Sometimes you need more time, more support, more inner work. But the procrastination is showing you where the door is. It is showing you what you are avoiding. And that is valuable information. That is the beginning of change. The 10th sign is a sense of relief when plans fall through. You make a commitment, set a date, agree to do something, and then, when it gets canceled or postponed, you feel a wave of relief so strong it surprises you. You realize you did not want to do it. You realize you were dreading it. And yet, you had agreed. You had said yes. And now that you do not have to follow through, you feel lighter, freer, as though you have been given a reprieve. This relief is a clear signal from your psyche. It is telling you that the commitment was not aligned, that you agreed for the wrong reasons, that you are operating from the persona rather than the self. And if you pay attention to this pattern, if you notice what brings relief and what brings genuine anticipation, you can begin to make choices that are more aligned from the start. You can begin to say no before you commit, rather than hoping for a last-minute escape. But this requires a level of self-awareness and self-honesty that is not always easy to access. It requires you to slow down, to check in with yourself before you respond, to ask not just whether you can do the thing, but whether you want to, whether it serves you, whether it is aligned with the life you're trying to create. And this is a practice, a skill that develops over time. It is the practice of listening to yourself, of trusting your own knowing, of valuing your own needs as much as you value the needs of others. As we bring all of these signs together, a larger pattern begins to emerge. Procrastination is not a single thing. It is not just a bad habit or a lack of discipline. It is a complex response to misalignment, a way the psyche protects you from living a life that is not true, that does not serve your deeper purpose, that does not allow for the full expression of who you are. And when you see it this way, when you stop fighting it and start listening to it, it becomes a guide, a teacher, a source of information about what needs to change. The process of recognizing this is not quick. It unfolds slowly, over time, as you begin to notice the patterns, to see the connections, to understand that what you thought was a personal failing is actually a sign of something deeper trying to emerge. And this recognition can be both liberating and disorienting. Liberating because it frees you from the guilt and shame of thinking you are broken. Disorienting because it raises new questions, harder questions, questions about what you actually want, who you actually are, what kind of life you're actually meant to live. These are not questions that can be answered quickly. They require time, space, reflection. They require you to sit with uncertainty, to tolerate not knowing, to resist the urge to fill the space with action or distraction. They require you to turn inward, to listen to the quiet voice that speaks in symbols and feelings rather than words, to trust that the answers will come not from thinking harder, but from allowing yourself to be still, to be open, to be receptive. Jung spoke about the importance of active imagination, a practice of engaging with the images and symbols that arise from the unconscious. It is not about analyzing them or interpreting them intellectually. It is about entering into a dialogue with them, allowing them to speak, allowing them to reveal their meaning over time. And this is one way to work with procrastination. Instead of judging it, instead of trying to overcome it, you can ask it what it wants. You can sit with it, write about it, explore it, and see what it has to teach you. You might begin by simply noticing when procrastination arises. What task are you avoiding? What does that task represent? Is it connected to a role you are playing, a goal you have set, a commitment you have made? And when you think about doing the task, what do you feel in your body? Is there tension, heaviness, a sense of closing down? Or is there openness, curiosity, a sense of expansion? These bodily sensations are clues. They tell you whether you are moving toward alignment or away from it. You might also notice what you do instead of the task you are avoiding. Where does your energy naturally flow? What captures your attention? What do you lose yourself in? These are signs of where your true interests lie, where your passion lives, where the unlived parts of you are trying to express themselves. And if there is a significant gap between what you are supposed to be doing and what you actually want to be doing, that gap is worth exploring. It is showing you the distance between the life you are living and the life that is trying to emerge. Another practice is to write, not with the intention of solving anything or coming to a conclusion, but simply to give voice to what is happening inside you. You might write about the procrastination itself, describing it in detail, exploring how it feels, what thoughts accompany it, what fears or resistances are present. You might write to the part of you that is procrastinating, asking it what it needs, what it is protecting you from, what it wants you to know. And then you might write from that part, allowing it to respond, allowing it to speak in its own voice. This kind of writing is not about being articulate or insightful. It is about creating a space for the unconscious to communicate, for the parts of you that do not have a voice in the ordinary world to be heard. And over time, patterns will emerge. Themes will repeat. You will begin to see more clearly what is happening beneath the surface, what the procrastination is trying to tell you, what needs to change. And as you gain this clarity, as you begin to understand the message, you will face a choice. You can continue living the life you have been living, pushing through the resistance, forcing yourself to do the things you do not want to do, maintaining the persona even though it is draining you. Or you can begin to make changes, small at first, tentative, experimental, to bring your outer life into closer alignment with your inner truth. This does not mean you have to quit your job, or end your relationships, or move to another country, though sometimes those changes are necessary. More often, it means making smaller adjustments, creating space for the parts of you that have been suppressed, saying no to commitments that do not serve you, saying yes to opportunities that resonate with your deeper values. It means being more honest, more authentic, more willing to disappoint others in order to honor yourself. And this is hard. It goes against everything you've been taught about being responsible, being reliable, being a good person. It requires you to prioritize your own needs, your own truth, your own path. even when that makes others uncomfortable. It requires you to trust that living in alignment is not selfish but necessary, that you cannot give to others from an empty well, but the best thing you can do for the people you care about is to become who you truly are. As you make these changes, you may find that the procrastination begins to ease, not because you have developed more discipline or willpower, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. You are no longer trying to force yourself into a life that does not fit. You are moving in a direction that feels right, that has meaning, that connects to the deeper purpose that has been calling to you all along. And when you're aligned in this way, energy flows naturally. You still face challenges, still have moments of doubt, but there is a sense of rightness, a feeling that you are on your path, that you are living your life, not someone else's idea of what your life should be. This is the hidden meaning of procrastination. It is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is a signal, a message from the depths of your psyche, telling you that something is not aligned, that the life you are living is not the life you are meant to live, that there is another way, a truer way, waiting for you to discover it. And the only way to discover it is to stop fighting the procrastination and start listening to it, to honor the resistance as a form of wisdom, to trust that your psyche knows something your conscious mind does not, and to have the courage to follow where it leads. Nothing in your inner life is random. The patterns repeat because they carry meaning. The resistance arises because it is protecting something valuable. The procrastination persists because it is trying to guide you toward a life that is more true, more whole, more aligned with who you really are. And if you can see it this way, if you can shift from judgment to curiosity, from force to listening, you may find that what you thought was your greatest obstacle is actually your greatest teacher. So if you find yourself procrastinating, if you find yourself unable to do the things you think you should do, pause. Do not judge yourself. Do not berate yourself. Do not add another productivity system or another morning routine. Instead, ask yourself what the procrastination is protecting you from. Ask yourself what it is trying to tell you. Ask yourself whether the life you're trying to live is actually your life, or whether it is a life you have inherited, adopted, or constructed to please others. And then, if you are ready, begin to listen. Begin to notice. Begin to explore the gap between who you are pretending to be and who you actually are. Begin to honor the parts of you that have been suppressed, the desires that have been denied, the dreams that have been dismissed. Begin to make small changes, to create space, to say no to what does not serve you, and yes to what does. This is the work of a lifetime. It is the work of individuation, of becoming whole, of stepping into the fullness of who you are meant to be. And it begins not with action, but with awareness. Not with doing, but with listening. Not with force, but with trust. If this exploration has resonated with you, if you have recognized yourself in these patterns, I invite you to continue this work. Sit with what has been stirred in you. Write about it. Reflect on it. Notice what changes, what shifts, what begins to emerge. And if you found value in this, consider sharing it, liking it, subscribing, so that others who are struggling with the same questions can find their way here. Leave a comment if you feel moved to sharing your own experience, your own insights, your own journey toward alignment. We are all walking this path together, each of us trying to find our way back to ourselves, back to the life that is truly ours. And every step, no matter how small, matters.